everybody out there. Again, it's Tuesday, about 7:15, and this is the Midnight Skeptic coming at you yet again. And as I've said before, I'm going to keep doing this until I get it right. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is Tuesday, August 30th, and it's about 7:15. I'm recording this for KPCA, and it'll be broadcast on the 4th of September, the long weekend ahead of us, the long, hot weekend ahead of us. And as the intro said, that, it's pre-recorded. I play it every time. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access or any of the people that work down there, or any of its affiliates, radio stations, etc., etc. However, I suspect that everybody down there has similar views to mine, okay? And I, the Midnight Skeptic, am proudly woke. And I intend to get some t-shirts made up to that effect. And, I'll let you all know when they're available. And if they don't cost too much, I'm just going to send them out to everybody that wants them. Okay. And if you have any hate mail, severe disagreements, death threats, or even suggestions about how I could improve this show, please send them along to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. Okay? I'll get it. And I'll deal with all those items as I see fit. Okay. Shout outs. Anchor.fm/Spotify. I'm on Spotify now, worldwide. Thank you, Anchor.fm. I got a few listeners in the European Union, maybe about a dozen or so. And I just found out that I have one person in Russia that's listening to me, and a couple in Australia and New Zealand, and actually 3 up in Canada, our northern neighbor. And I love their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He's a good man. I wish we had politicians like him in the Republican Party, for that matter, the Democratic Party too, down here in this country. He's a good man. Okay, locally, Nariman, Cody and Keith, Kevin and Lori up in Katati, Von Santos, San Francisco's, Stan and Kathy, Rich and Kathy, and Susan Miller, the fount of lefty thinking down in Pacifica. She's relatively new, and she listens every now and then. In Sacramento, Dave and Rosita, and Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored. Please, listeners out there, go on to projectcensored.org and sign up for his weekly newsletter. It's quite interesting, and if you're in a local bookstore, look for Project Censored 2022. It has all the news that didn't make the news. Okay? That's kind of their byline. Okay, lost my track here. Sonora, Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. Martha, take care of yourself. Feel better, that leg of yours, and wear your PPE. COVID has not gone away. Kathy Francis, Leonidas Maciel, Judy May, and Darrell, the Bronc Rider Larson. And let's see, all the way down in Mexico City, uh, Rosie Lopez Negrete. She used to be in Sonora, now down in Mexico City now. And let's see, lost track again. Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina, and their daughter Andrea, who's a nurse down there, and her husband Tim, plus their three little terrorists. And in the southwest corner in Patagonia, Arizona, Karina Hilliard, the snake removal lady. And Florida, Mita Beamer and Nelson and Alice. North Carolina, Dr. Dave Rubin. Get those Democrats in North Carolina out to vote. We need those candidates in that state. And Dr. Dave is working on it. He's a Democratic Party operative now. And on Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. Okay. That's the shout-outs. And I'm going to try to lead off the show every week now and end the show with good news. I really hate being negative Nelly all the time, although in these MAGA times, it's difficult. And, well, speaking of MAGA, one of my listeners said or asked, okay, this is the direct quote. Just curious, is everybody who disagrees with you considered to be a MAGA head? Well, no. And I answered him, all right-thinking people would agree with me. Okay. MAGA heads are exclusively in the Republican Party. There are a few in the Lincoln Project is evidence that Republicans can be right-thinking and kind and compassionate and intelligent and well-read and everything that a person should be, but in Republican circles are not. MAGA head Republicans are just, I don't know what happened in their lives to make them as fearful and hateful as they are. And I'm going to tell you right now that my theory is that a lot of it has to do with the Southern Baptist and Pentecostal religions that are, ascendant in MAGA land. But anyway, that's a whole new topic for another show. Okay, I was going to start off with good news. Okay. Texas law mandating that people who donate in God We Trust signs, posters, embroidered, framed needlepoint things, whatever it is, in God We Trust, they have to be prominently displayed in classrooms. That's a law in Texas now. It's a mandate, and in classrooms. Okay, but this was challenged. Okay, not by somebody taking them to court over this, but this guy, and I'll tell you his name, Chaz Stevens. He's a politico-religious prankster. He donated a bunch of signs to a school district, around where he lives. And it says that, the signs or posters or whatever they were, said this, in God We Trust. However, it was in Arabic script. And he had a poster to that effect. And, well, of course, unless you speak Arabic, you don't know what it says. It just, as far as the MAGA head's concerned, they probably say, "Death to America." Yeah. Well, it actually says in God We Trust. So we'll see how this turns out. I got a laugh out of that he did that, challenging that law. Okay, real good news. women's rights. Okay. Spain has just passed a law requiring clear consent for sex. Yay. In other words, yes is the only thing that means yes. Okay, the feminist call of, and this is a quote, only yes means yes, unquote, has finally become law in our country, says Irene Montero, Spain's Minister of Equality. We actually have a cabinet position, Minister of Equality. Yeah, we should have one too, really. Spain joins Canada, Sweden, and Denmark that have already adopted similar laws. Okay. Snark alert coming up. No Republican would ever vote for anything like that in our country. You know, see what I mean by MAGA Heads? Can you imagine Ted Cruz voting for a potential law that says only yes means yes for women and sex? I'm sorry I had to mention Ted Cruz in this, but okay. Another bit of good news. Yelp is now protecting users seeking abortions from being misled about anti-abortion pregnancy centers listed on its platform. Most such centers are religiously affiliated and only exist to deter clients from having an abortion. Until 2018, these centers claimed to provide reproductive health and medical services. That was a complete lie, as Christians often do. Yelp changed the title of that category to Crisis Pregnancy Centers. And so, women, if you are pregnant and you don't want to be anymore, don't go to a crisis pregnancy center. Just go to a real doctor and get real help. Okay. Stupid MAGA head bad news. A woman from Katy, Texas, Katy, it's a little town just west of Houston, went to her local police station to file a complaint about a book in the Jordan High School library. I'm going to have more to say about book banning and potential burning later in the show. A KTISD, that stands for Independent School District, police officer. I guess the school districts have their own police forces down in Texas. I guess Uvalde, Texas, had its own police force. The guy, the chief, has been fired since. I mean, he was pretty much useless. Excuse me, drink. I've got an exceptionally dry throat tonight, so I'm going to be sipping a lot of lemonated water. Okay. Jordan High School Library, she complained. A KDISD police officer took the book, which is Flamer, and by Mike Corrado, off the shelf. The woman alleged that the district was providing harmful material to minors. The book had already been reviewed by a school district and had been approved as appropriate for high school kids. Now, coincidentally to my recording this, I had ordered Flamer from my local bookstore, Copperfields, in downtown Petaluma, and they called me this morning and said it was in, and so I went down and bought it. And it's a graphic novel, and I just read the first 20 pages so far. I was getting my car smogged today, and anyway, so I started reading it. And as far as I've gotten, it's the trials and tribulations of a young boy that's just entering high school and having had to put up with typical guys in middle school who tease each other about hot dogs and wieners and dicks and butts and you know, guys like that. I suppose it gets worse, but this lady, and this MAGA head lady who is overly protective of her little snowflake MAGA kids, went to the police. That's so typical of MAGA head Republicans. Anyway, they put it back on the shelf at the high school level, in Jordan High School. Anyway, enough of that. Okay, good news. KT, Independent School District students speak out against pulling books from library shelves. There was a group of them that got together and said enough is enough, or words to that effect, about parents, and it's always parents. I have statistics later on in the show about who is objecting to all these books. All right. Students at Katy ISD. Cameron Samuels, a Seven Lakes High School senior, and some fellow students from other Katy ISD have distributed over 500 banned books to students at district's high schools. Yay! Way to go, Cameron Samuels. Okay, I'm off my notes. Excuse me. They distributed over 500 banned books to students at district high schools in February this year. They say they staged a KTISD, quote-unquote, Freedom Week. And it's spelled capital F, capital R, EADOM. That's freedom, read. Freedom Week, where they gave out books such as Beloved by Toni Morrison. MAGA Heads hate that book. Not only for the content, which is not that bad, I read it, and because it's written by an award-winning Afro-American lady. She won the Nobel Prize, so MAGA heads will never put up with that. Okay, the district is considering whether to pull Maus, M-A-U-S, a 1991 book by Art Spiegelman, a book about the Holocaust, and is a graphic novel. And I haven't read that. And I understand that cartoonish mice represents the Jewish people and cats represent the Nazis. Anyway, I haven't read it, but eventually I will. Okay, as of this week, the district has removed 10 books from its schools, and it gave a site where you could go to find out which 10 books the school district pulled off the shelves. I went to that, and okay, page not found. So, okay, Samuels, this Cameron Samuels, who's the student at the high school, says their efforts have gotten students to talk about censorship. Yay! Those who are opposed to book banning are more vocal now, a student said. And, okay, this little note out in the margin that I wrote, I found out this factoid after I'd written this bunch of notes about it. KTISD is the most restrictive school district in Texas. Boy, that's saying a lot. I guess, the KT Independent School District is just chock-a-block full of MAGA heads. Another sip. All right. And, okay, here's a law, and I don't think it's a Texas state law, but it's for this district at least. Parents should be notified by email if their child checks out a YA fiction book. Okay, YA is book speak for young adult. I guess they mean 13 up to 19, whatever it is. But parents should be notified by email if their child checks out a YA fiction book from the library. MAGA heads, MAGA heads. This is the dystopia if we let Republicans win elections now. Please, 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 when November 8th rolls around this year, if a candidate has an R by his or her name, vote for anybody else except that person. And we got to, California is a pretty lefty state in general. We have areas of the state that is pretty Kansas-y or Nebraska-like up in the rural areas, but and they harbor some Republican House of Representatives, Congress people. Please, please vote them out. We don't need them. It would be such a treat for everybody if there were no Republicans representing California at all. Okay, I'm just riffing now. The White House of the former guy, the orange sociopathic bloat bag, tried to pressure the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, to approve hydroxychloroquine as a COVID-19 treatment, even though research showed it to be ineffective and potentially dangerous. Okay, and this is nothing recent. This goes back into the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bags administration. Do you remember Stella Emanuel? The black lady that was from Africa that came over here, and she went to medical school, and she's the one that believed that women's reproductive health problems were caused by dreaming of sex with demons. That lady. Okay, she and a bunch of others are members of America's Frontline Doctors. And then my notes are, it says sarcasm alert. Okay, she is the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag's Frontline Witch Doctor, and one of them, America's Frontline Doctors, Joseph Ladapo, was appointed by Ron DeSantis as Florida's Surgeon General. Okay, I'm going to say it and risk, I don't know, a lawsuit. Joseph Ladapo is a quack, and he should not even be a doctor. All right, I doubt if anybody that's listening to the show is going to run to him and say, "Hey, Dr. Ladapo, do you know what the Midnight Skeptic said about you?" and then they'll sick their lawyers on me. But I'm going to say it again. Dr. Joseph Ladapo, Florida's Surgeon General, is a quack. He was a member of America's Frontline Doctors, a made-up group of MAGA head doctors. Okay, enough of that. Sue me if you will. Okay, good news. Carolyn Foote, Foote, a retired school librarian, is, God, my handwriting. Oh, okay. Carolyn Foote, a retired school librarian from Texas, is spearheading. That's what I was trying to write down here. It looked like kind of looked like I wrote speakeasy. She's spearheading a grassroots effort to fight back against book challenges in Texas. 10 current or recently retired Texas school librarians, in speaking to a reporter, described growing fears of attacks by, and this is my word, MAGA heads online, or that they may face criminal charges, meaning the librarians are afraid of facing criminal charges for letting their students read. Okay, 5 books were, not 5 books, 5 of these 10 librarians were thinking of leaving the profession. Sarah Chase, a longtime librarian, and Carroll Senior High School near Fort Worth, said, and this is a quote, "I got out because I was afraid to stand up to attacks. Who wants to be called a pornographer or a pedophile? And all I'm doing is calling Republicans MAGA heads. They're calling names. Every Democrat, liberal, woke person, yay, that's me. They're calling us groomers, pedophiles, pornographers. I got to do a segment on an upcoming show about who the person or persons, plural, advised Republican candidates, MAGA heads, to use those terms when describing their Democratic opponents. Okay. Okay, here's that. Good news. Only 1% of book challenges come from students themselves. The rest come from MAGA head mistrustful parents, which is more than half of the remainder. One of the books that was challenged that I happened to run across in this particular article about the 1% was All American Boys, and by a guy named Reynolds. And it was a book, and I haven't read this one, about young black guys who were subject to police brutality, kind of like Ferguson, Missouri. But the reason I even wrote this down was that only 1% of book challenges come from students themselves. The vast majority of the rest of the challenges come from MAGA head parents. The less that students get to read, the more politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene will have, and Lauren Boebert, and Louis Gohmert. Oh, God. They're the prime examples of non-education. Okay. There's a company in Texas. It's called Patriot Mobile. I got to do a quick time check. Okay, moving right along. Okay, in Texas, Patriot Mobile, a Christian cell phone company is focusing on packing school boards with MAGA heads. All right, and I wrote down later. I guess I'm going to talk about this later. Ignorant MAGA head update. Dave Alvord, capital Alvord, a member of the Salt Lake County Council, Utah, Mormon land, said, and this is a quote, I guess he was in some discussion on the floor of the city council of Salt Lake County, and they were discussing abortion rights and so on and so on. And this is a quote from him displaying breathtaking ignorance. Okay, the baby is not part of the body of a woman. The umbilical cord and placenta do not directly connect to the woman. The baby floats inside the woman. Well, needless to say, okay, this guy was a dentist before he entered politics, so one would think that a dentist would have some anatomical knowledge. But anyway, a bunch of OBGYNs jumped on him. I think this quote was on Twitter, and I followed the thread of comments from OBGYNs for a little ways, and then I said, they're all going to... They all jumped on him for being an ignorant jerk. And I went to his page, and he... I couldn't... on his page, he did not specify what religion he was. I strongly suspect that he's a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, better known as Mormons. There's a very nice-looking, blondish, blue-eyed wife, and he was, a guy in his mid-30s, I guess. And they had 5 little kids. They were sitting on their front porch when this picture was taken, and they were all about, in my estimation, about a year apart. But, okay. Typical Mormon. That's my, prejudice. Okay. Good news again. Carolyn Foote. Okay, I mentioned her before. The co-founder of Freedom Fighters. Okay. Capital F, capital R, EADOM, Fighters. A group of Texas librarians fighting book bans in schools. They, a group of 4 Texas librarians, advocate for students' freedom to read. They've made T-shirts and posters and coffee mugs and all that that say support freedom fighters. She is a Westlake High School librarian at EANES, Enos, I don't know, ISD, Independent School District, in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is a little island of sanity and progressivism in the middle of a sea of MAGA heads. Okay, and this is a quote. Every reader has the right to choose what they read or what they don't want to read. And MAGA heads keep coming back to this phrase, age inappropriate. Okay, well, who decides that? What's age appropriate or not? I would trust teachers and librarians over Republican politicians any day of the week. There was a teacher of literature in a Florida school, I think it was a middle school, who resigned the day after school started because he had put up in his classroom a number of pictures on the bulletin board of black American heroes. The usual suspects, Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King, and on and on and on, plus a picture of Barack Obama. Okay, another teacher, I guess a MAGA head teacher, some teachers are MAGA heads, came in and took the pictures down, saying that they were age inappropriate. Oh, okay, and he went to his principal, and he got the runaround, and so the next day he resigned. It's really, this is Florida, Ron DeSantis land. But anyway, this business about being age inappropriate, to a MAGA head parent, their little snowflake kids should not read anything by black authors, other authors of color, any author that's of the LGBT community, or the main character in a book is LGBTQ. I guess ignorant MAGA heads somehow have it in their heads that a kid will open a book, such as Flamer that I just bought, and said, "Ooh, this kid is gay. Cool. I think I'll be gay." It doesn't work that way in the real world, but you would not be able to convince MAGA heads of that. Okay, all right, enough of that. 1969, Tinker versus Des Moines established that students have First Amendment rights like anyone else. And this is a quote from the decision, this is a Supreme Court decision, the students, do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. Okay, and let's see. Tinker set a precedent for the landmark 1982 Supreme Court decision case in the case of Island Trees School District versus PICO, P-I-C-O, which established that no school board, can remove a book from a library simply because they disagreed with the content within it, but that boards could remove a book based on concerns about, and this is a quote, educational suitability or pervasive vulgarity. Boy, that is a loophole that MAGA heads will drive trucks through. It's not suitably educational. Okay. Book Riot says that, okay, I wrote my notes down in the wrong order here. Matt Krause is a Krause. I've talked about him on a previous show. He's a Texas state representative. He has a list of about 800, give or take, books that he wants all school districts in Texas to, quote unquote, review. In other words, he doesn't like them. And Book Riot is it's a group that focuses on books. They edit, they publish, they talk about books. They have a newsletter, and they're a sub-unit of the Riot New Media Group. Okay. Anyway, they say that 62% of the challenges, books on Matt Krause's list, touch on LGBTQ themes. Jonathan Friedman, director of free speech education at PEN America. PEN, that's a writer and book publishing group and library group, I think listed that statistic. Matt Krause, Texas, MAGA head. Okay. Bad news. The MAGA heads are coming for our schools. I warned my listeners and readers about this on my little blurb on my Facebook page for last week's show. The MAGA heads are coming. The MAGA heads are coming for our schools. A far-right Christian evangelical cell phone company took over 4 Texas school boards. And here I'm going to talk about Patriot Mobile is the company, and using their PAC money to infiltrate local school boards, and that's their game. Quote, "The school boards are the key that picks the lock." Well, who said that? Steve Bannon. He said this during an interview with Patriot Mobile's president, Glenn Story, capital Story, from the floor of the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, in Dallas on August 6th. Yeah, that's about 4 weeks ago. We went out, Story said, and found 11 candidates last cycle, and we supported them, and we won every seat. We took over 4 school boards. MAGA heads are coming for us, people. Vote out all Republicans, no exceptions. Okay, this spring, the Patriot Mobile PAC blanketed 4 Texas communities with political mailers warning that current board members of the school boards are endangering students with CRT and other woke ideologies. I'm woke? Can I say it again? Okay. One of my crusades is to make woke not a pejorative anymore, but a compliment. I've said before on a couple of shows that, in my opinion, being woke is being accepting, loving of your fellow man and fellow students, not a bully, seeking to improve your intellect by reading and expanding your horizons. If teachers would groom their students to be those things, none of them would ever grow up to be Republicans. Okay. Or MAGA head Republicans. Okay, I'm off my notes, and I'm riffing as I do now and then. This week, okay, woke ideologies. Okay. This week, the Grapevine Colleyville ISD, Independent School District Board of Trustees, voted 4-3 to implement far-right policies that restrict teachers' abilities to teach about race and gender. Also, the rights of transgender and non-binary students to use bathrooms and locker rooms that correspond to their genders. MAGA heads, in addition to being mean and cruel, are obsessed with bathrooms. Jeez. Time check. Oh boy, I better hurry up here. Okay, Lee Wamsgans, Executive Director of Patriot Mobile. I'll spell her last name in case you want to Google her. Capital WAMBSGANSS, double S at the end. That's she's the Executive Director of Patriot Mobile, who declines interviews with most media outlets. But anyway, she said in a recent interview with a conservative reporter, quote, Patriot Mobile's goal is to install school boards who will oppose the teaching of LGBTQ ideologies. What does that even mean? And to a MAGA head, it doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't matter in the real world. Okay, and she wants school boards who will fight to remove pornographic books and stand against school anti-racism initiatives that indoctrinate children with anti-white and anti-American views. Okay, if you're for inclusiveness, then that must mean you're against white people. Anyway, that's what she said. She made clear that Patriot Mobile views its political activism as a religious calling. Quote, "We're not here on this earth to please man. We're here to please God." That's her words. Okay. Horrible news. Dominionism, sometimes referred to as, quote, the Seven Mountains Mandate, unquote, was once a fringe right-wing strand of Christianity. It is now being foisted off on as many school boards as Patriot Mobile can take over. MAGA to these people means Make America Christian Again. The Seven Mountains theology followers believe that it began with a message from God delivered to evangelical Lauren Cunningham, Bill Bright, and Francis Schaeffer in 1975. Cunningham founded the International Christian Missionaries Group. Bright, Bill Bright, founded the college Campus Crusade for Christ in 1952. Schaeffer was an author and Presbyterian minister. The seven mountains that must be infiltrated and taken over are family, religion, education, that's what they're doing right now, media, entertainment, business, and government. You know, if I sound anti-Christian, well, I am. I'm actually anti-all religions. All religions are, at their core, misogynistic. The world would be a wonderful place, I think, if just religion of all types, just disappeared into the firmament. Okay, horrible Jack Murphy news. I'm not related to him, by the way. Jack is an Ohio podcaster who once said, oh God, quote unquote, feminists need rape, in a 2015 episode of his podcast. J.D. Vance, who's running for Senate in Ohio right now, appeared on his podcasts for 90 minutes and bonded with him over their uber masculinity and social views of pushing back against liberals in government. He favors children and women staying in violent, abusive marriages. Okay, because by definition, husbands own their wives. Okay. Good news. Thank goodness. I got good news here. Boogaloo boy Stephen Carrillo was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Santa Cruz Deputy Sheriff Damon Gutzweiler in 2020. Okay. Boogaloo Boys, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers are all just the militia of the MAGA heads. Okay, bad news. In Modesto, California, Saturday, this 8/27, a National Straight Pride Coalition gathering took place. And it turned violent because counter-protesters came out. The Straight Pride Coalition was having a gathering, and in my view, if they want to have a little demonstration, not even a demonstration, just a gathering to demonstrate straight pride, okay, go ahead and let them. But it's not really that. It's anti-LGBTQ pride, okay? And they staged their gathering demonstration in front of the Planned Parenthood on McHenry Avenue. I'm familiar with Modesto, and the only reason they would gather there is to incite violence. Well, they got it. The police estimated the straight priders at about 30, give or take, and the LGBTQ counter-protesters at somewhere between 130 and 150. The straight pride protesters gathered in front of Planned Parenthood on McHenry. There were 3 arrests. The fights broke out, and eventually that afternoon the police declared it an unlawful assembly, and people didn't just go home meekly. All right. John Fea, capital F-E-A, a professor of American history at the private Christian Messiah University in Pennsylvania, says that Seven Mountains theology has been around for decades on the right, but, quote, largely on the fringe, unquote. Well, he just said that a couple of weeks ago because he was asked about Patriot Mobile. This is what he said. Well, they aren't on the fringe right anymore. They are amongst us, like the body snatchers. Raphael Cruz, okay, who's he? Ted's dad. A pastor and father of Ted Cruz is a leading proponent of the Seven Mountains worldview. Okay, sleaze update. And if there's another word that means more sleazy than sleaze, I'd like to find it because it describes James O'Keefe to a T. Okay, sleaze update. MAGA heads plead guilty to the theft of Ashley Biden's diary. Robert Kurlander, sleazeball number 1, and Amy Harris, sleazeball number 2, who tried to sell the diary to the 2020 campaign of the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag. And those 2 will be sentenced in December. They pled guilty to being thieves. Excuse me. The campaign of the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag before the election in 2020 declined the offer, but the grand poobah of all sleazebags paid them $40,000 for the diary. Okay. A member of the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bag came campaign instead directed these sleazebags, number 1 and 2, to Project Veritas, which is the biggest GOP MAGA Head sleazy organization of all time. They bought it for $40,000, and Project Veritas also told the two sleazebags to steal some more of Ashley Biden's items so that they could verify that the diary was really Ashley Biden's. Well, they did. Project Veritas contacted her lawyers, meaning Ashley Biden's lawyers, in order to force her into an interview. Instead, she contacted federal prosecutors. Yay, Ashley. And, well, here we are. Federal prosecutors are now investigating Project Veritas. Project Veritas, founded and run by uber sleazeball James O'Keefe, was going to use her diary against Joe Biden before the 2020 election. Ashley Biden was going through recovery from addiction, and the diary contained intimate information about her and her family. Okay. Speaking of sleaze, Alex Jones is accused of hiding millions of dollars in assets from the Sandy Hook families. The families have asked the federal bankruptcy court to force Jones to relinquish control of InfoWars and Free Speech Systems. That's the parent company to InfoWars. Anyway, okay, real quick. Good news. The Center for Inquiry at Work in Oklahoma, CFI, that's the parent company to Brain Freeze, the magazine that I subscribe to. Okay, let me just go on here. Opposed a bill, Senate Bill 1470, this is Oklahoma, which prohibited any school material that offends a student's religious beliefs, such as teaching evolution. It failed to advance, thank goodness. State Senator Rob Standridge introduced the bill, which would allow parents to sue public school personnel, teachers, for promoting positions in opposition to a student's closely held religious beliefs. The bill does not specify which particular deeply held religious beliefs are covered. What about Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster or the Satanic Temple? Here we come. Okay, I'm going to play my out music. Whew, this is a long one today. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, I'll see you guys all next week. Just pet your cats and try to get rid of all this MAGA head garbage out of your systems. All right. Bye-bye. I'll do this again next week.